Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at the submarine gameplay from round 2 testing. This is the U-69, it's the German submarine. I did also share a video of the U-69 in round 1, so you can compare and contrast. Right off the bat, there's a lot of things that have changed. First of all, underwater, the green highlighting effect seemingly occurs at a faster rate than it did previously, and it doesn't seem to be synced up with the sonar. The compass sonar tells you a general direction based on, obviously, sonar underwater. And I don't know that I like that it is desynced, and I also don't know that I like that little highlight effect that goes over the ship. I know it's trying to protect you from bumping into something that you may not be able to perceive firsthand, but I kind of feel like this is the element that I want to be in. I want to be lost in the underwater world, and I certainly feel like the oxygen bubbles, the god rays, the cloudiness definitely nail sort of that run silent, run deep feelings that I want from submarine gameplay. And I of course, love that the propellers are putting off a lot of, foam and bubbles and smoke. I like that. That's cool. It obviously doesn't go to the surface. It probably never will. There's not going to be some visual cue, very tiny, that's going to give you away. It's going to be all in game, and I think that's fine. And visually, it is honestly stunning that they could do this in the same game as the surface ships, in my opinion, because I just didn't foresee that the submarines would have that kind of visual fidelity underwater. I feel like the budget would just be too much, but it seems that Wargaming is definitely dedicated towards making the submarine gameplay as impressive visually as the aircraft carriers, the DDs, the cruisers, the battleships. And I'm very happy with that. Now, we're moving into position to overlook A point. 9-kilometer range torpedoes. We can't use ray location. My skills are survivability expert, faster torpedo reload. But it's pretty much, you are the sniper who is overlooking the objective. You can provide torpedoes that can do fairly reasonable alpha, not nearly the kind of alpha that you saw in the first round of testing, and I'll show that off against the Fuso in a little bit. But you were really just trying to stay 5 to 9 kilometers away from opponents actively pushing into an objective, and you're trying to land, obviously, your ping on the target so that the torpedoes can home. Now, it kind of looks like the ping intersected with the bow position on the enemy cruiser, but I guess it didn't. And we were able to follow up, but there are added features to this versus round 1. We have sort of a countdown on the crosshair. Really appreciate that. I also like that it's a square, because you can immediately associate it with the square position for pinging. These are not something that you see normally in the game. They were definitely added for the submarine, and I like that you have that consistency. It's very easy for people to associate square, square, circle, circle. There's nothing to think about there, no language barrier, and I love that it's important information on your screen. Also, Wargaming has assigned a dedicated button to ping, and I think, compared to the first version, I feel like I'm in more direct control. Sometimes I would send torpedoes in round 1 testing, and I would attempt to try and ping, but then it would be almost encouraging me to send another set before the first set got there. It felt really like in the chamber, move it through fast. The way it feels now is you can send a torpedo set out. You can sort of gauge the opposition, who could be in range for you to punish. And then obviously you want to land the 2 pings to cause your torpedoes to go into a critical state. And you're going to notice broadside Fuso. What is this, going to one-shot him, Notser? That's what it certainly looked like in round 1 testing. Well, this is one area where they have definitely nerfed it. It is noticeably weaker, and I'm trying to refresh my ping because it'll eventually run out. This is the whole play that all submarines have to do. You have to maintain that lock until the torpedoes hit home, and this guy's 50% life. Those torpedoes would have absolutely killed him prior to round 2 testing. They have drastically reduced the torpedo damage that is possible on big ships like battleships. Now, they're not the hardest thing to hit, certainly not at tier 6, I mean, there's a high amount of American battleships. Fuso is not a speed demon either, where they just move so slow that it's very easy to actually target them. But notice something about the enemy Fuso. He is actually moving outside of range. And whenever I ping the target, it's giving just a slight indicator of my location on the minimap to the enemy opposition. But if a battleship is, staying 8.5, 7 kilometers away from a submarine, he can quite easily, especially late tier, move outside of that 9-kilometer range barrier, because it is a hard rule. If he is a meter past 9 kilometers, they will fail to damage. And here's a great example of it. He's moved slightly outside of my range, and it was unable to actually continue forward, because that is a very hard rule. So I expect, depending on the situation, you're going to have battleships sort of play close, but then actively retreat and have DDs rush in and try and take out the target. Just as before, landing your homing on a DD is not the easiest thing, but it is possible. It certainly feels probable if the player is not doing everything he can to dodge, or he's moving at full speed. If he's camping in smoke or doing anything like that, it's not that big of a deal. It's really on the DD's ability to maneuver. Even if I land these on him, he could easily have turned into the torpedoes and avoided it, and that is a double enhanced against a DD. It seems that they are trying to make sure that the enhanced torpedoes do not exceed probably 50% or 60% of the target's life. Obviously, exceptions go towards something like a DD. They don't have a citadel, and it's very easy to dodge. But here's another element that didn't exist prior to this version of the game, the round 2, the aft torpedo. So Germans, I don't know if the Americans have this same feature. I haven't honestly tried it in round 2. The aft torpedo is very useful to use as you're retreating. It has the same cooldown as your forward torpedoes. You just get 1 instead of 2. So you have 4 torpedoes facing forward, 1 torpedo facing the rear. The rear one can still be just as effective and do quite well against targets very similar to the previous version. And obviously we're going to hit a broadside on this guy. The homing is still intact. He's still close. We do great damage, but once again, it's not quite as much as round 1 testing. And I am in full favor of this. It was too devastating to something like that. And it takes the collective effort of my team to take out the target. But it wasn't, impossible to hit those pings. I certainly think that the pinging system may or may not be too easy or too hard. I need more time playing with the ping. I can easily pick up on battleships, kind of pick up on cruisers, and the only way that I really can deal with a DD is if they just make a mistake. And enemy submarine in the area. This is another change. Not only do you have to break the surface, you need to avoid the homing ability to turn in. It actually continues on underwater. The sub versus sub gameplay actually has a little bit more intriguing gameplay elements to it that they've added. I really like this whole back and forth sub thing where the homing actually is a threat underwater. You need to, turn into the submarine torpedo because the homing can only turn at such a rate. It can't turn tight enough. Same goes for DDs, cruisers, battleships, honestly. But if you have 3D World, going down is not going to save you anymore. And that's a good change for subs because, quite frankly, submarine versus submarine gameplay was horrendously boring in round 1. This is not all the way there, but it is more compelling than it was. Just across the board. It's just a more compelling experience. So we're sort of retreating. We're using our aft torpedoes. Really like the aft torpedo for the submarine. It really does make it to where, there's a risk of attacking forward, but you can always do a little bit as you are retreating. And submarines, you're going to just retreat a lot. A lot underwater, a lot trying to stay one step ahead of them, because those DDs, They are still very, very scary. I don't want him anywhere near me, and yet I feel like he is very aware of me, and oh, he dodged that. Did you see that? Love it. I can just imagine as a DD going up against these guys and seeing the torpedo come towards me and dodging out of the way in the last half second. Really like that. I really feel like that is definitely improvement on the gameplay itself, and now we're above water. This is dangerous, but I need to get some distance. It is so easy for them to catch up to me if I'm using any periscope or underwater whatsoever. The underwater portion, they slowed it down by about 20%, so being on the surface is the fastest, but clearly it's the most vulnerable, and this DD is just not going to give up the chase. So what do we have to do? We've got to try and drop down and land these torpedoes. We only have 4 torpedoes facing forward, 2 separate launches, and I just have to kill this guy. If I don't kill this guy, I'm going to have to go to maximum depth in order to just survive from this threat. And it's well, quite frankly, this is pretty dangerous. I can't hit the second portion, not that I really need to. He's guarding it quite well, and he's the bot able to dodge out of the way, and we got one more set, and if this doesn't land, we've got to dive very rapidly, and is he going to dodge it? No, he doesn't. Oh, that felt good. Whew. You'll notice that the located is still indicating on the screen. I kind of feel like it bugged out there because it stays on my screen for the rest of the game. But man, if we did not take that guy out, it was going to be real bad depth charges. We would have to instantly press our consumable, go down to maximum depth, and hopefully move away from him. Now, one thing I want to do is catch the ship as it is sinking, and you can see the effect that this sort of sonar effect. I just wish that this green tint that takes over the screen synced up with the sonar effect. And somehow we hit a dumbfire torpedo. I don't know how that's possible. We did. But it's so cool to see the opponent's ship sinking to the bottom of the ocean right next to my submarine. I love that. I love that so much. I can't wait to watch above me as a massive battle takes place, as I'm desperately trying to run away and survive. I love the cat and mouse possibilities, and we're still really early in this. There's still a lot they could do, and oh, Groody. We have even more opponents that are right on top of us. Great. Just great. And I don't have any torpedoes that I can send forward, so we're just going to do a little whale action, go up for air a little bit, and we're going to hide underwater. And I kind of think that the French cruiser has sent torpedoes. Yes, he did. He did send torpedoes. But can't you guys appreciate just how atmospheric the underwater portion feels playing this game? Like, you really feel like a sub. But that green tint going constantly and not connected with your sonar, it just feels kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm just someone who expects a little bit too much with regard to mechanics being associated with gameplay. It doesn't feel like there's something that the sub is doing to create that environmental indicating system, and I kind of wish it did. Now, did you notice that? If we would have hit that second ping, we would have charged up our torpedo, probably killed the cruiser, but because we slightly missed it, it never enhanced it to do citadel damage, and the cruiser's still alive. And now we got to retreat, because every second we were on the surface, it was pretty difficult. So, you know, this is how the sub kind of ends up feeling. DD on the surface for initial spotting, corridor submarine torpedoes that can home on the target. Your forward are obviously very powerful, but your aft is still useful. As you're underwater, you won't benefit from radio location. You won't benefit from any information on the surface. You've got to go, based off of your sonar, a general estimate on what's going on with the opponent. And I like that. I wish the sonar was, honestly, something that the player could develop as a skill, and maybe there is something that can enhance it, or maybe a faction enhancement, ping effect, the rapidness of sonar, or the precision. There's a lot of things that they could create that aid in that diversity, brand new consumables, the maneuverability underwater versus on top, how easy it is to access your periscope, how easy it is to exit your periscope. I mean, all of these things could subtly differentiate the subs, and we're just not there yet. Round 2 testing is a great step forward, but we can still add more, and we should continue to strive. So, things that I would discuss: I don't really like the green effect underwater and its frequency. I feel like that takes away from the atmosphere that Wargaming has so masterfully crafted for submarine warfare underwater visually. I just love the bubbles. I love the concealed nature of the water. It's sort of an ally, but it's also kind of dangerous. And I don't really get that vibe when my screen is blinking every 2 seconds, just a hue of green, hue of green, hue of green. If it was assigned to the sonar effect, then it would visually sync up with a compass update in information that you can then use. But it's not even doing that. It's just there, in my opinion, to aid visually and not bumping into things. But do I really need to see every half second where the entire ocean floor is? It just doesn't feel like it is grounded in a system that's actually on the ship. If you would assign it to the sonar ping and the sonar compass information, then it would make sense. Then I would feel like, yeah, that's the sonar going out through the ocean, and what I'm getting in return is on my compass. And I think that would read much better, in my opinion. But from a gameplay standpoint, love the dedicated ping button, love the crosshair changes to show the cooldown. I love the aft torpedoes, they're really great. The maximum depth and the manual depth charges, both good changes. And lowering the torpedo damage absolutely has improved my play and enjoyment of the subs. I have not gone up against an aircraft carrier with dive bombs in this version. I imagine it sucks. But initial testing, round 2, A+. Love the changes. It has improved the gameplay for the sake of the player, and that is always a good thing. If Wargaming can continue to match the kind of improvement from round 1 to round 2, we're going to be in a really exciting place with these guys. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.